My aunt accidentally sent me a video of my family calling me a pathetic failure while I had been paying their bills for years. She should be grateful, they laughed. I stayed silent until the next payment was due. My name is Elena. I am 34 years old, and I am the founder of a highly successful logistics software company, though my family has no idea. Sitting in my glass office above the Chicago skyline, I watched that video, picked up my phone, and cut off their funding forever. Before I continue, tell me where you are watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever realized that the people you were sacrificing everything to protect were the very people you needed protection from. The afternoon the video arrived, I was reviewing final paperwork for a multi-million-dollar enterprise contract. 3 wide monitors covered my desk with code architecture, revenue projections, and deployment maps. I wore an old gray sweater, yoga pants, and a messy bun. If you saw me driving my aging sedan, you would never guess my net worth. That was exactly how I wanted it. I grew up in a house obsessed with appearance. My father, Robert, was a former regional manager who loved country clubs long after his income disappeared. My mother, Margaret, measured worth by designer labels and social circles. My younger sister, Brianna, was the golden child, an aspiring lifestyle influencer and amateur realtor who had never closed a single deal. She lived in a luxury downtown condo, wore clothes that cost more than most salaries, and filmed a fake life for strangers online. To them, because I worked from home and ignored handbags, I was a disappointment. They believed I did low-level technical support. I let them believe it because the truth would have created resentment and endless demands. What they ignored was that 5 years earlier, Robert's obsession with status had driven them into bankruptcy. The estate was weeks from foreclosure. When I gently offered to help, my father laughed in my face and said a pathetic computer worker could never save him. My mother called my offer insulting. Brianna told me to stop embarrassing myself. So, I did not argue. I contacted my wealth manager, Marcus, and quietly purchased their distressed debt through a blind company called Apex Holdings. For 5 years, I was the anonymous angel investor paying Brianna's $5,000 rent. I was the faceless trust covering my parents' mortgage, taxes, and country club dues. I asked for no gratitude. I simply paid and endured their insults at Sunday dinners because I thought family meant protecting people even when they were cruel. Then my phone buzzed. The message was from my Aunt Ruth, my mother's sister. It read, "Can you believe her outfit today? So embarrassing." A video was attached. I knew it was meant for someone else. I pressed play. The screen opened on my parents' decorated living room. Robert sat in his leather chair, swirling champagne. Margaret sat on the white sofa with perfect hair. Brianna paced in a silk blouse, laughing. "Did you see what Elena wore when she dropped off that package?" Brianna said. She looked homeless. "If my followers saw her near my car, my brand would be ruined." Robert chuckled. "Your sister is a pathetic failure, Brianna. She has no ambition, no drive, just a sad little computer nerd. She will always be the embarrassment of this family." Margaret smiled. "Thank God for the Apex Trust. If we had to depend on Elena, we would be in a cardboard box. She should be grateful we even invite her to Sunday dinner. At least she gets to see what real success looks like." Then they raised their glasses and laughed, celebrating a luxury life completely funded by the woman they were mocking. The video ended. I did not cry. I had spent my childhood crying over their rejection. In that moment, the last thread snapped. They did not misunderstand me. They despised me. They used my supposed failure to feel superior. I looked at the contract waiting for my signature, and thought about the hundreds of thousands I had poured into Apex Holdings. I had funded the delusion that allowed them to look down on me. I called Marcus. "Good afternoon, Elena," he said. "Congratulations on the new contract. I am calling about Apex Holdings. Of course, the rent and mortgage transfers are scheduled for next week. What adjustments would you like?" "No adjustment," I said. "Terminate funding immediately. Stop the condo rent, stop the mortgage coverage, stop the property taxes, freeze the account, and send termination letters." There was a professional pause. "All funding?" he asked. "Yes. Not another dime. Let the rent bounce. Let the mortgage default." "Understood." I ended the call, turned back to my monitors, and signed the enterprise contract. My family wanted to see what real success looked like. They would. 2 days later, I drove my old sedan to Sunday dinner. I wore the same faded sweater, plain jeans, and scuffed loafers. It was my costume, the struggling IT daughter they expected. Margaret saw me first. Her smile vanished. Still refusing to buy decent clothes, Elena. It is embarrassing to have you show up looking like a vagrant. I am comfortable, Mom. Robert waved a hand without looking up. You cannot teach taste to someone with no ambition. Brianna sat across from me in a silk dress. Not everyone is meant for the spotlight, she said. Some people are background characters. I poured water and watched them with clinical interest. They were actors who did not realize the stage was collapsing. Robert bragged about Oak Ridge Country Club, a membership I was paying for. He spoke about playing golf with bankers and CEOs. You need to network with people of substance, Elena. You are right, Dad, I said. You never know who is actually funding the lifestyle you enjoy. The irony sailed over his head. Then Brianna leaned forward. I need you Tuesday. I am shooting a brand video at my condo. Come at 8. Carry my outfit changes, hold lights, and get coffee for the crew. You want me to be your unpaid assistant? Obviously, she snapped. It is family helping family. Besides, seeing my condo will give you something to aspire to. Margaret nodded. You should be grateful your sister includes you. I placed my fork down. No. The table went silent. No? Brianna hissed. No. I will not carry your bags, hold your lights, or fetch coffee. I have my own work. The room exploded. Margaret called me selfish. Brianna screamed that I did nothing all day except restart computers. Robert slammed the table and ordered me to obey. You bring nothing to this family, he barked. You owe us. Brianna is going to be a star. You will help her. I folded my napkin and stood. I understand perfectly, Dad. I understand my role, and I understand what I owe you. I will not be coming Tuesday. I walked out while they shouted loser, coward, waste of space. Outside, beside my sedan, I looked back at the glowing mansion. 5 years earlier, this place had been days from foreclosure. I had brought a cashier's check to that same dining room, enough to save them. Robert pushed it back and laughed. Margaret said they needed real money, not pennies from laptop repairs. Brianna called me delusional. That night, I cried all the way home. The next morning, I created Apex Holdings. I saved them anonymously because their pride was too sick to accept help from the daughter they hated. For 5 years, I wore old sweaters to dinner, while paying for the table beneath their plates. I thought I was noble. The video taught me I was enabling parasites. I drove away without looking back. On the highway, my dashboard chimed. It was Marcus. Both scheduled transfers have officially bounced due to closed accounts. Termination notices dispatched. It was done. Back at the estate, Robert would receive the email first. Notice of immediate trust termination and cessation of funds. He would read it twice, unable to process that the magical trust had vanished. Margaret would panic over country club dues and caterers. Brianna would burst in screaming that her rent bounced and eviction was coming unless she produced $5,000. They would call the trust number. Disconnected. They would search for an address. Nothing. The anonymous angel had disappeared. While their world collapsed, I parked beneath my high-rise, rode the private elevator to my penthouse, opened a bottle of red wine, and turned my phone to airplane mode. That night I slept peacefully, for the first time in 5 years. 2 weeks passed in bliss. I finalized global contracts, hired senior developers, and watched revenue climb. Outside my quiet penthouse, I knew grace periods were expiring. The facade was cracking. Then Margaret called. Elena! Thank God, she gasped. It is a disaster. Brianna's angel investors made a mistake. Her rent bounced. She needs $5,000 today, or they will evict her. That sounds stressful, I said. Did she call the trust? We tried everything. It is just temporary. I need you to help. Take a cash advance. Max your cards if needed. The trust will reimburse us. You want me to go into debt for Brianna's condo? You are her older sister. It is your duty. What do you even spend money on? You wear thrift store clothes and live in a cramped box. This is the only meaningful contribution you can make. Mom, listen to yourself. You have called me a failure for years. Why would you ask a pathetic loser to sponsor a luxury lifestyle she supposedly cannot afford? Silence. Do not be petty, she said. Your sister will be homeless. Then she can move into her childhood bedroom. A scuffle, then Robert's voice thundered. You ungrateful brat. If you had a real career, you could help this family once in your miserable life. I cannot save you, Dad. Remember? My career is a joke. He cursed me and hung up. 72 hours later, Brianna's nightmare arrived. She was filming a morning routine in silk pajamas, holding matcha she hated, when building management knocked. They handed her a notice to vacate. Her amenities were revoked immediately. She had 48 hours. Without money for movers, she bought black garbage bags and shoved designer dresses, handbags, ring lights, and cosmetics inside. Her entire luxury brand became trash bags dragged through a service elevator. She crammed them into her convertible and drove home. Margaret nearly fainted when Brianna opened the trunk in the driveway. The golden child was back, sobbing, with her fake life stuffed in plastic. Her childhood bedroom swallowed her ego. Ring lights leaned against old furniture. Designer clothes wrinkled on the floor. She could not film there. The influencer was silenced. Inside the estate, 3 narcissists were trapped together without my money as a buffer. Robert screamed about electricity and groceries. He called Brianna lazy and told her to get a real job. Brianna screamed that a real father would save his daughter. Margaret cried behind closed curtains, terrified neighbors would hear. I watched from a distance. Public records showed the eviction filing. Brianna's accounts went dark. I did not gloat. I built my company. A month later, pre-foreclosure arrived. The estate had 30 days to produce past due mortgage payments, taxes, and penalties, or the property would be seized. Robert put on his best golf shirt and drove to Oak Ridge, convinced his network would save him. He pitched a bridge loan to wealthy acquaintances. They smelled ruin immediately. One banker told him his institution did not fund sinking ships. A CEO laughed and turned away. Robert left the club humiliated. Margaret drove 2 towns over to pawn a diamond bracelet and sapphire earrings for a charity luncheon she could not afford to miss. The broker offered a fraction of their value. She took the cash, leaving her dignity behind the bulletproof glass. That evening, the family sat in the kitchen, broken. Brianna cried over lost followers. Robert drank cheap liquor. Margaret stared at foreclosure papers. Then their desperation found one last resource: me. They spoke about my clean credit as if it were family property. Robert said I owed them for raising me. Margaret said my credit score was wasted because I had no luxury ambitions. Brianna said it was unfair for a loser to have financial stability while she suffered. They convinced themselves it was not theft. It was a temporary family loan. Thursday morning, a Tier 1 security alert flashed on my office monitor. Someone was trying to open an unsecured personal loan in my name for $150,000. I clicked into the documents. Forged tax returns. Altered W-2 forms. My job listed as senior IT support worker with a fake middle-class salary. They had used the fictional version of me they invented. Tracing them was effortless. The IP address led to my parents' estate. The device fingerprint matched Brianna's laptop. They had not even used a proxy. Stupid criminals always think confidence equals competence. I called Marcus. Activate legal. My family just committed identity theft and wire fraud. Within an hour, corporate attorneys compiled server logs, forged signatures, credit alerts, and affidavits. The loan company froze the application. My credit profiles were locked. The attorney asked if I wanted law enforcement dispatched immediately. No, I said. I want to look them in the eye first. I printed the evidence on heavy paper and placed it in a black leather folder. Then, I changed. Not the faded sweater. I wore a tailored dark blazer, crisp trousers, and heels. I wanted to look like the executioner they had earned. The drive to the suburbs took 47 minutes. I parked behind Brianna's packed convertible, used my old brass key, and walked inside. The foyer lights were off to save money. Voices drifted from the kitchen. I entered and found them surrounded by bills. Brianna wore stained designer sweatpants. Margaret clutched cheap wine. Robert massaged his temples. They stared. For once, they did not see a pathetic failure. They saw authority. "Elena?" Margaret whispered. "Why are you dressed like that?" I walked to the island and dropped the black folder. The thud echoed like a gunshot. I pulled out the fraudulent loan application and slapped it on top of Robert's bills. "I believe you dropped this. Someone here has a terrible memory for social security numbers and an embarrassing talent for forging federal documents." Robert read the pages, his face drained, then panic turned into rage. "How dare you spy on our network?" "I am not spying. I received executive fraud alerts because you tried to steal $150,000 in my name." "It is not theft," he roared. "It is a family loan. We raised you. We fed you. Your credit is an available family asset." "My identity is a family asset? What else are you good for?" Brianna sneered. "You have no husband, no social life, no ambition. Your credit score is the only useful thing about you." Margaret switched tactics, crying instantly. "Sweetheart, please, call the bank. Say it was a misunderstanding. Sign the approval. It will save our lives. Be a good daughter." I looked at all three of them. They still believed they could insult, bully, and cry their way out. "I am not calling the bank. I am not signing anything. I am not saving this house, and I am not saving you." Robert leaned forward. "Sign, or you will regret it. My credit is frozen. The loan is flagged as criminal. The digital evidence proving the application came from this house is with a corporate law firm. If you touch my identity again, I will let federal authorities arrest you in this kitchen." Margaret gasped. "You cannot do this. We are your blood." "No, Mom. You are criminals who got caught. And you are entirely out of options." I picked up my folder and walked out. This time, they did not shout. They understood silence had changed sides. Outside, the estate looked smaller than ever. The columns, the lawn, the chandeliers, the entire performance was rotting from the inside. I had spent years keeping that performance alive. Never again. I drove back to Chicago, where my real life waited above the skyline. My company was expanding, my home was peaceful, and my name was finally mine. They called me a pathetic failure while drinking champagne I paid for. They laughed at the daughter who saved them. Then they tried to steal from her. So I gave them exactly what they deserved. A life without me, a house without my payments, and consequences without my protection. For years I thought love meant swallowing disrespect. I was wrong. Love without respect is a leash. Family without loyalty is just a cage with nicer furniture. The day I cut them off was not the day I lost my family. It was the day I stopped financing my own humiliation. And when the next payment came due, they finally learned the truth. The pathetic failure had been the foundation of their entire world. 3 weeks later, the foreclosure notice became public. Robert tried to pretend it was a clerical issue, but the country club had suspended his membership for unpaid dues. Margaret's charity friends whispered behind napkins when she arrived wearing fake stones and an old dress she claimed was vintage. Brianna attempted a comeback video about starting over, but the background was her childhood bedroom, the lighting was terrible, and her followers noticed the trash bags stacked beside the closet. For the first time, they experienced the life they had assigned to me in their imagination. Ignored, dismissed, and desperate. The difference was that I had built myself in the dark. They had only decorated borrowed walls. Marcus kept me updated through clean, emotionless reports. The estate entered formal proceedings. Brianna's landlord won judgment. Robert's bridge loan attempts were rejected. Margaret pawned more jewelry and blamed everyone except herself. Not once did they apologize. They sent messages filled with accusations, scripture, fake concern, and threats. I archived every one of them. One evening, Brianna stood outside my building demanding to see me. Security called upstairs. On the monitor, I saw her in oversized sunglasses, pacing beside the lobby desk like a fallen actress waiting for applause. She told the guard I was her sister, and that family emergencies overruled privacy. I told security she was not on my visitor list. She left 20 minutes later, crying into her phone for an audience that no longer cared. That night, I sat by the window with tea instead of wine. I expected guilt to arrive. It never did. What came instead was clarity. I had not destroyed them. I had only stopped interrupting the consequences they had earned. There is a difference. Weak people call boundaries cruelty because they benefit from your silence. Cowards call accountability betrayal because they plan to keep using you. The next morning, I changed every emergency contact form, every estate document, every instruction connected to my life. Their names disappeared from my world with the click of a keyboard. Then I opened my laptop and returned to work. My software moved cargo across continents. My decisions carried weight. My name signed contracts they could not pronounce. And somewhere in the suburbs, 3 people who had mistaken my kindness for weakness were learning that a safety net can become a noose when you spit on the hands holding it. Forever.